ventilate a few matters in the national and political discourse. The Secretary General of the ANC is here, but also we are joined by two of our members of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, Comrade Dumseni Nduli, to my right, who also is deployed by the ANC in Parliament as the Chief Whip, member of the National Executive Committee and the Working Committee of the ANC. Next to the Secretary General is Comrade Zugo Kodlimpi, member of the National Executive Committee, also deployed in government as a Deputy Minister, who also chairs the Economic Transformation Subcommittee of the ANC's NEC. Without taking any more time, the SG will read out a statement, after which we will then turn to yourselves, colleagues, for some engagement. Over to you, SG.
Thank you very much, spokesperson of the ANC. You will see that we come to you now in full force in relation to the matter at hand of the VAT increase. Comrade Mdu is heading our parliamentary processes, but is also part of the Legislative and Governance Subcommittee of the ANC, which is chaired by Tembing Kadimeng. So if you need follow-ups from us as the ANC, you will find Mahlengi, Mdu, and Kodlimpi, except myself, because I'm going to outline to you the positions of the ANC in terms of the recent developments. But the subject matter we are dealing with is not new. We have ventilated on the matter with other political parties, of which we had an opportunity to engage in a decent discussion with them on the budget impasse. And then Kodlimpi is heading our Economic Transformation Committee, which also deals largely with matters that are related to the budget. So to enhance a central coordination and communication on behalf of the ANC on this particular matter of the budget, those are the faces you will be dealing with, and the others which will be deployed from time to time by the spokesperson and the chief spokesperson, which is myself as the Secretary General, on this particular matter. So these are the guys you'll be looking for in relation to this matter. But it is important that we start from reminding you that what the ANC voted for in relation to the fiscal framework, together with other political parties. First, the fiscal framework was tabled by the Minister of Finance, and it was supported, subject to the strict condition that National Treasury facilitates the receipt of substitute revenue proposals from the committee, together with the corresponding expenditure savings that will form the basis of an alternative revenue instead of 1, the proposed 0.5% point increase in value-added tax for 2025-2026 financial year, effective from the 1st of May 2025, in respect of which the committee has expressed serious concerns. Now, the committee include the ANC, the DA, the Inkatha Freedom Party, Action SA, and who else do? EFF, MKP. So those are the parties that constitute this committee, which we relate to here that serious concerns were raised. And the failure to adjust personal income tax brackets in line with the higher of the actual CPI inflation rate for 2024, or the projected CPI inflation rate for 2025 to prevent bracket creep. And furthermore, the committee recommends that the alternative revenue proposals, which is very important. The committee recommends that the alternative revenue proposals and expenditure savings to balance the 28 billion rand shortfall, which must effectively suspend the proposed increases, be finalized and submitted by the committee to process within 30 days for consideration and adoption of this report by the House. So that is why the question of the court was rendered moot the day the minister came back within the period of 30 days, responding to the submission of political parties and having undergone this particular process and made a determination that there are alternative means of revenue. So where we come from was the postponement of the budget and then the passing of the revenue framework. So when people argue in the public domain and say that the ANC and other political parties, first and foremost, they are making up for a loss because the minister wouldn't have taken the 10 years taken if there was no court case. This is what was voted for in terms of the budget framework in Parliament. And that is why Action SA, BUSA, and others kept on harping on the question that the budget will not increase beyond the 1st of May. And that is the question that was voted for and answered in Parliament when the budget framework was actually introduced. So this is not fudged or made up. It is in the order paper of Parliament. Now, it is easy for us to forget these things and simply say that the victory belongs to others. And the question before us as the ANC has not been the question of what belongs to us in terms of victory, was what the situation we're dealing with. And we're very happy to engage the media and many other people around that particular question as the African National Congress today. The ANC, therefore, welcomes the formal withdrawal of the proposed VAT increase by the Minister of Finance and setting aside of the 2025 fiscal framework. This outcome is not a legal victory for any party, but a decisive political resolution rooted in consultation, maturity, and the guiding principles of the Freedom Charter, quote unquote, the people shall govern. The ANC remains steadfast in asserting that the work of government must be shaped not by courtrooms and media spectacle, but through democratic consultation, constructive consensus building, and revolutionary responsibility to the people. The political decision to reverse the VAT increase was reached after substantive engagement between the ANC and 10 other parties in Parliament, all of whom demonstrated discipline, focus, and patriotic clarity. This include the Inkatha Freedom Party, Action SA, Pan-Africanist Congress, Rise Mzansi, Build One South Africa, United Democratic Movement, Al-Jama, Patriotic Alliance, Good Party, and the National Coloured Congress. We salute the collective maturity shown in reaching this outcome, a moment that affirmed that political differences need not paralyze governance, and that principle to cooperation in the national interest is not only possible, but necessary. We note that the Minister of Finance has communicated a new process to adopt the revised fiscal framework that will now be tabled on the 21st May 2025. We call on government to ensure that we have a budget that reflects a conscious decision to protect the most vulnerable, while ensuring the budget remains a tool for inclusive growth, job creation, and economic reconstruction. Many things were good about the budget, and we still believe it's a good budget. Now that VAT increase is off the way, we need to get down to those issues that were good in terms of the budget. It has to be a people's budget, a budget that does not retreat into austerity, nor sacrifice long-term transformation at the altar of technical compliance. Instead, it must be a budget that balances pro-growth policy with pro-poor spending, rooted in the developmental ethos of the Freedom Charter and the democratic values of the Constitution. That has been the main issue with regard to this budget when it comes to the African National Congress. That social spending and the austerity measures, we need to move away from that. The ANC will continue with its work to engage other political parties within the GNU as promised and agreed, and across the floor of Parliament around the revised fiscal framework. Our goal is to sustain the work that we started after the initial fiscal framework was tabled in Parliament and build consensus around a progressive medium-term fiscal strategy that takes out the austerity cycle into a comprehensive growth agenda. Among the key features that must be included in the revised fiscal framework are a sustained strategic shift in fiscal allocation to be biased more towards economic classifications, especially measures that will kickstart growth, that creates momentum for increased entrepreneurial activity and massive employment across the economy. Transport infrastructure, increased investment in road, rail and commuter infrastructure to unlock regional trade, reduce the cost of movement for working people, improve freight logistics by lowering costs and improving predictability of goods movement, and stimulate local economies through public investment initiatives. Zero-rated goods expansion, we still maintain that. Additional food items have been added to the VAT-free basket to reduce food insecurity and ensure direct relief for poor households. Water infrastructure and dam projects, strategic investment to boost long-term water security, particularly in drought-prone areas, ensuring both household access and agriculture viability. Healthcare funding, the employment of 9,300 health workers and 800 post-community service doctors across provinces, expanding frontline capacity and improving public health delivery. Public service efficiency, thousands of public service posts, we believe, must be filled to address vacancies and improve access to government services. On basic education and teacher retention, ensure that funding is ring-fenced to retain teachers in classrooms, especially in rural and township schools, ensuring continuity in learning and the safeguarding of education gains. Early childhood development, expanded allocations for early learning infrastructure, nutrition, and educator support to strengthen the foundation phase. Post-school education and training, additional funding to NSFAS to support students from poor and working class backgrounds, ensuring no deserving student is excluded from university or college education due to financial constraints. On social protection, over 30 billion has been allocated to extend the social relief of distress, SRD, grant, currently reaching more than 8.5 million people. This is a strategic step towards the long-term vision of implementing a basic income grant. The VAT reversal and the setting aside of the 2025 fiscal framework were formalized through an out-of-court settlement, endorsed as a court order by the Cape High Court on the 27th April 2025. This gave legal effect to a political consensus and ensured that the VAT increase will not automatically come into force on the 1st of May 2025. We welcome that Parliament did not concede to any procedural defects and further note that its processes were in full compliance with the Constitution and the Money Bills and Related Matters Act. However, in light of the Finance Minister's withdrawal of the Division of Revenue and Appropriation Bills and the submission of new revenue proposals, it has become necessary to legally clear the path for tabling a new budget. The Minister will now table the revised budget on the 21st May 2025, and Parliament will adjust its program to ensure full compliance and legislative timelines, finalizing the budget before the end of July 2025. Once again, the ANC has led society through a difficult moment with discipline, political clarity, and maturity. We did not yield to populist noise. We did not collapse under pressure. We listened to the people, engaged the opposition, and acted in unity with others, and not claim easy victories, to ensure that this budget remains transformative, redistributive, and growth-focused. We will not allow the National Democratic Revolution to be undermined through backdoor austerity, nor will we allow the legacy of the liberation movement to be diluted through short-term compromises. The Freedom Charter remains our lodestar, and this budget reflects that. Let the message be clear: the ANC governs for the people, with the people, and in service of the people. The revised fiscal framework should be a progressive tool that will deliver jobs, strengthen public services, and uplift the poor. As the nation prepares to celebrate Workers' Day tomorrow, the ANC will continue to defend the hard-won labor rights that generations of workers have fought for. We call on our people to join the Workers' Day rallies organized by COSATU throughout the country and other unions, and to recommit to the principles of dignity, equity, and justice in the workplace. Our steadfast rejection of the DA's attempt to use the VAT increase as a political extortion underscores this commitment. Behind the scenes, the DA was not only bargaining for budget concessions, they were pushing for a new labor regime that will allow employers to dismiss workers without due process, dismantle affirmative action, and roll back transformation. We will not relent in defending the progressive, legal, and constitutional framework that protects workers today. We'll never allow the working class to become collateral damage in budget negotiations. Instead, the ANC will continue to champion a growing, inclusive economy that brings more South Africans, especially young people, women, and rural communities, into the labor force with dignity and security. It is in this spirit that we denounce the DA's court challenge against the Employment Equity Act. It is not only a legal maneuver, it is a calculated political stunt launched on the eve of Workers' Day, aimed at reversing 3 decades of democratic gains. These are the people yesterday who said they are opposed to VAT increase because they are defending the poor. The next day they wake up, they are in court, and what are they doing in court? They are attacking employment equity. What is employment equity? and who benefit out of employment equity. And why would you challenge it and want it to be reversed? It is these workers. It is the rights of the dispossessed over the years that we fought for and that we will defend. We will defend these rights even through the government of national unity, as we do today. And we will do that even tomorrow when we celebrate the Workers' Day. This is part of a broader pattern as we want ahead of 2024 elections. The DA has consistently opposed transformative legislation. The Bella Act, the NHI Act, the Expropriation Bill, and now the Employment Equity Amendment Act. Just on the eve of Workers' Day, they are in court, all of which seek to restructure power, ownership, and access in our society. The DA's hatred for transformation has become shameless. In the Western Cape, under the DA leadership, employers are advised not to comply with equity legislation. And South Africans are told not to expect preference in employment. An illegal and immoral policy that betrays the principles of common citizenship and constitutional redress. This is made worse by the DA-aligned campaigns of Solidarity and AfriForum, who tore foreign capitals like the United States to spread lies about the ANC lynching minorities, treasonous distortions that insult the spirit of unity and undermine our democratic sovereignty. And thanks to South Africans, black and white, who have come to the fore, dispelled and dismissed these lies, not only here in South Africa, even in the United States soil and in the corridors of the White House. We have done that as the ANC too, talking to people across, even in the United States, about these distortions about our country. Let us be clear, the Employment Equity Act is not an attack on anyone. It is a constitutional imperative. Its recent amendments achieved through NEDLAC consensus ensure sectoral targets that reflect regional realities, support SMMEs, and hold employers accountable in state contracts. These reforms are modest, are rational, and necessary. The Freedom Charter foresaw this moment. In Clause 7, it proclaimed, "There shall be work and security." That clause called for equal pay, the right to organize, maternity leave, and national minimum wage, and protection against exploitation. It demanded the abolition of child labor, compound labor, and the TOT system. TOT, you know, TOT system. That's how our people were subjected to, the TOT system. The ANC's revolutionary duty is to implement that vision, not to debate it with the reactionaries. We will stand with COSATU, the South African Communist Party, and all progressive formations in resisting this desperate assault by the DA. Through this act, they are drifting from the spirit of the government of national unity and positioning themselves outside the project of nation building and shared prosperity. Transformation, equity, and diversity are not up for negotiations. We will not surrender to elitist apartheid nostalgia or legal posturing. As an organization rooted in the struggle of mine workers, farm workers, domestic workers, teachers and nurses, the ANC reaffirms all shall share in the country's wealth. The ANC congratulates the ANC-led government and the Department of Transport for a successful Easter Road safety campaign. I saw somebody disputing this even when they were presented with facts. The country is changing for the better. People are not used to good things. The carnage on the road is being reduced, And many good things are happening in our country, not horrible. Many good things are happening in our country, and things are happening. You look at the electricity. We're overcoming the difficult struggles that we've been waging against difficult, stagnant, and stubborn challenges that we've faced over the years. And one of them is this road carnage on our roads. This is a moment of both celebration and reflection. And it's not for the ANC, it's for South Africans to recognize that the call is sinking. It means me and you who are on the road, who are believing in the message. How many years after Arrive Alive was launched, that today, without a holiday, without COVID, only in COVID, I was a minister, we celebrated the reduction of road carnage because not so many people were on the road. Today, people went to Moria, they went to different parts of the country, traveling to the beaches, and they drove in our roads, and yet we register the highest number of reduction of road fatalities. And that tells a story that me and you and our people are part, who are very much part of this particular campaign and the center of it. The message is sinking. A recognition that effective government action combined with public cooperation can save lives and promote a culture of responsibility. Working together, we can do more. At the same time, we extend our heartfelt condolences to families who lost loved ones during this period. Your loss is our collective pain. We remain committed to strengthening road safety campaigns throughout the year to ensure fewer families face this sorrow. The struggle continues, and through this people's budget, we deepen the path to a more just, united, and prosperous South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. I will at this stage take questions. I'd like to start this side. We will direct some of the questions, most of the questions to comrades who are seated here with me. Whilst now that the SG has read the statement, the SG will come back and provide a response to some questions and also a summary. But let me take the questions. I'll start with you, my sister, to right at the corner, followed by Sunday Welsh, followed by SABC. Well, I see two SABCs. Okay, in that order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Makeni. My name is Amanda Khoza. I work for Geopolitical. I have two questions for the ANC. What lessons has the ANC learned over this whole budget debacle? And given the opportunity to do things differently, what would the ANC do? The second one is there's been calls for the minister to resign. I'd just like to get your comment on that.
Thank you very much. Sunday Welsh.
Thanks, my name is Mawande. Sunday Wells. Probably as a starting point to emphasize the question of my colleague Amanda, the last question, to be more pointed, if you say Minister Odongwana must not resign, who is the employee of the ANC, what are the reasons thereof? Do you accredit the mess to him as a person? Because, I mean, it can't be, both can be right. It can't be right, the ANC can't be right, and Minister Odongwana can't be right in this saga. One must be wrong, and if it is Minister Odongwana, must he fall? If you say he can't fall, must the ANC fall? And then what is the update on the dispute lodged on the Limpopo Regional Conference in Pitamukaba, if there's any update in that regard? Mr. Balula, you also mentioned the issue of the SRD grant, and which will ultimately become the basic income grant. People say this is a language of a party that doesn't have a real plan to create sustainable employment, because I'm sure all of us would agree that a welfare state is not something that we should be espousing of 30 years and counting into a democratic dispensation. What do you say to those critics? It's not me, it's critics. I'm just representing their views.
Their spokesperson.
And then, and then, Mr. Balua, you also say that you will not allow the NPR to be undermined through backdoor austerity. Who is bringing this back doors there? Because you see, with this GNU thing, you never understand who you are criticizing. Because, for instance, it's Mr. Golongwana who's your deployee at National Treasury. Is it him who's bringing back doors there? Is it the DA? If it's the DA, how? Because the DA is not the minister of. By the way, Mr. Moreno, you are complaining so much about the DA and apartheid, nostalgia, all these strong words that you use. Why don't you just get out of this marriage? I mean, I've never seen such a messy marriage. All marriages are not perfect, but this one, seriously, is very toxic. But you continue with such people. Why don't you just dump the DA and see if, I'm not saying choose MKP or EFF, choose someone. By the way, I've done the numbers. You can govern without the DA, MKP, and EFF. Why don't you take that option? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I see your colleagues are fascinated, but I will proceed. It wasn't City Press, it was SADC, followed by.
Yeah, but we need real newspapers. City Press, please. we don't need gossip here. City Press. Come, City Press, please.
I was next.
Yeah. No, I'm joking. You can go ahead, my sister. We are asked them, Kessel.
Okay, it's very short, and it's a follow-up on what Mawanda was talking about. You're so scathing about the DA, but isn't this really just to spin or detract from the fact that this party has given you guys a bloody nose and have exposed your hypocrisy? You were quite happy for the poor and the vulnerable to pay extra in terms of an increase in VAT, and they said no. They're going to be able to claim the fact that they've been looking after the poor, and now you're trying to say that you have some kind of a victory, and that you are the very people who wanted everybody to actually pay more. And as he says, it's not as if you have to be in this marriage with them. Why do you continue with them when you have got such a low opinion of their anti-transformation agenda?
Thank you very much.
Okay, just to follow up, it's Natasha Brief here from the SABC News. I may have heard wrong, but I think this is, Zuko, if you can answer this question, because you're the head of the Economic Transformation Committee. So the ANC just said that National Treasury must move away from austerity measures, but listening to the briefing, this afternoon by the finance minister, he had suggested that they won't go to the markets to actually borrow more money. Given that they won't go, or the ANC is saying that they shouldn't go that route, what other route should they take? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will take City Press. I'm still to my right. Is your hand truly up?
Yes, it was up.
All right.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Norman.
Okay, my name is Norman Masungeni from City Press. Mr. Baluda, you are saying that this might not be the withdrawal might not be it's not a victory to anybody. But if the ANC, if the DA and the EFF didn't oppose the fiscal budget vote, and also their action of going to court, when was the ANC going to listen to the public outcry, the same people that the ANC is saying is representing? Because there has been outcry in the past about the budget, the VAT, and all, where the ANC didn't listen. When were you going to realize that now you need to listen to the people that you are representing? And also, the message that you are sending by the withdrawal or the retreat, are you saying that by withdrawing this, the budget or the fiscal, are you saying that you need somebody to be to watch over what you are doing, your action, to be your guide, basically, to say you are out of the way, now come back to the way? Are you saying to the voters that you can't govern on your own despite having the experience of 30 years? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will pause it here and take responses, after which we will then proceed in that particular direction. I'm going to ask Comrade Zuko to tackle, to get started, including the matter of the austerity that's been ventilated. And then once Comrade Zuko is responded, I will refer some of the questions to Professor Peter.
Okay, thanks, Comrade Mahleng. Some of these questions are categorical statements. They are really political arguments, some of which are factually flawed. You want us to get back to the sequence of who was the first person to object to the VAT increase. Now, it's going to be a very tricky exercise to do that, to walk into a cabinet meeting and say, no, 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 it's Mahlengi who said no. But you want to rely on the first person to write on Twitter that they rejected the VAT increase. It's not a sustainable way to deal with public policy. All political organizations rejected the 2% VAT increase. It's a fact. That is why the 19th February budget was postponed. It was not at the behest of any court action. It was an agreement amongst all political parties led by the Deputy President that Cabinet does not agree with the proposal by the National Treasury. That's the one part. Now we're dealing with a legacy problem here, and different sections of South African society have been making different arguments about it. The question must be posed whether people want Luthuli House to set the budget, or any other political headquarters, and have a national treasury that effectively receives a balance sheet from someone else and it merely goes to communicate it. We can discuss the process design and how weak it has been. But what has happened over there is that the National Treasury would come to Cabinet to present a proposal of the budget, including on tax adjustments, which is what happened this time around. Now, everyone was uncomfortable with that 2%. It's quite clear now, Amanda, that that approach of the National Treasury coming to Cabinet on the eve of presenting the budget speech is no longer workable. So that's the one part that the ANC has agreed that it has got to change completely. And I think the Minister of Finance also made that point, that even for the 21st of May one, they will have to have a much more extended consultation process. Our argument, for instance, as the ANC, is that the budget consultation process will have to have a longer lead period, starting from the period of the MTPPS. So once Treasury announces the medium-term budget policy statement, we have no choice but to start getting into the political process of discussing with everyone in Parliament on what that will look like. It's the effect of democratizing a process that has been working in a different institutional manner since 1994. So there are positives to this and there are negatives, of course, because it delayed us. But it's good that everyone now knows about the budget process and they can actually express themselves fully. It's a positive note. Many South Africans didn't know that actually when the Minister of Finance speaks in February, that's not the final budget, that there is quite a longer process that follows. So it's a good thing. Everyone has learned out of this. That's the positive. We will have to follow through with that consultation so that we don't get ourselves into this. Who wants to bring austerity via the back door? If you read the budget proposals that were raised by some political parties, including the Democratic Alliance, for instance, if you read through their document, there are a lot of austere measures that they proposed there. So in order to balance the budget, they were arguing that there must be reduction on the expenditure side. So that's essentially the point that the SG was raising, that yes, we are in a bit of a conundrum, but we can't afford to have a budget deal that includes locking us into austerity. And that's the position that the ANC made even to the National Treasury when it was making its representations. Natasha says we say Treasury must move away from austerity measures. And the Minister of Finance says they won't go to the markets. What other route should they take? I won't venture into the risk of tabling the budget before the 21st of May. But there are many other proposals that have been submitted to the National Treasury as well about how they can approach this thing. To have a budget that is not austere, but also keeps us within a respectable debt management level. So, but the Minister of Finance will definitely come through. There might be a debate about whether he can maintain the real or nominal increases that were in the other budget that he tabled. I'm sure they are working on that to calibrate the numbers, but the idea is that there must be no reduction on the areas of expenditure that the SG had outlined on issues of infrastructure, on education, on health, and so on. So I think on that one we're fine. Norman, I think I've answered the point about who listened when. The 2% VAT increase was not rejected through a court. It was a clear political resistance. at the time. And the ANC does not need anyone to supervise it, to reject anything. And that is why this rejection happened. And I must also make the point that the VAT increase has not been a permanent feature of our budget since 1994. The one that came was the 2018 one. This was the second one. So it must not be as though there's been too many VAT increases that the ANC just simply rolled over and allowed to pass. There's only been one VAT increase that the ANC has actually allowed to pass. It's the 2018 one. So the argument that the ANC has a track record of allowing VAT to... In fact, one of the unstated things in the ANC was to never touch VAT, either in reduction or increasing it. That's why it remained at that 14% level for a very long time. It was almost an unproclaimed consensus that you don't go there. That is why even ANC leaders were quite categorical in saying, don't go there. But there's a lot of difficulties that we still need to get into about which tax brackets do you adjust and which ones do you not. One of the things that you keep ignoring is the one that relates to you sitting here, the bracket creep. I had thought that you would be a spokesperson for yourself, Mawande, and not other people, and say, we welcome the fact that the ANC is committing to adjusting the bracket creep. And if you notice, no one took the bracket creep issue to court. It was not part of the court papers. But when the ANC had that agreement with political parties, it had included it on the agreement that it's not only just the review of VAT, but it's also a review of the bracket creeps. The unfortunate part is that public discourse became very VAT-centric, and the larger tax policy issues were left unattended to. So on that front, I think, Comrade Maseng, I've done my part on the technical issues. Thank you very much.
If I may just ask her to speak to the basic income grant
Yes.
yes, the whole issue about the policy pathway.
I'm going to send Mawande a study done by the World Bank on this thing and the IMF. So that the critics can understand that ANC logic is not strange. The basic income grant is to achieve a simple thing. It is targeted at those who are of working age, who are able-bodied and therefore are willing to work. One of the issues that has been considered is whether for those who are income poor, is it not expensive to even look for employment? I'll give you an example about you and I. We come from villages in the middle of nowhere. You will have to trek to Mthatha or East London or PE or Durban or Gauteng if you are going to look for a job. How are you going to do that? That's essentially what the basic income grant is about. It's a means-tested grant and it has a lock-in period. So people get into it for a particular period of time and they have to demonstrate that they are actually actively seeking employment. You know, when Stats SA does the unemployment statistics, they separate between the discouraged job seekers and those who are active job seekers. So the basic income grant is to get them back into that path. Now, the ANC says the SRD grant is a launch pad towards that, because the same social category that is covered by the SRD grant is the one of able-bodied, willing to work, but income-poor people. So that's the logic that the Secretary General was talking about. And I was making the point about the IMF and World Bank started to say, even the most anti-social security support institutions accept that there is actually data-backed justification for such intervention. So that is the context in which this thing is raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
No, thanks, Comrade Maseng.
We may just have an issue, my apologies, we may just have an issue of the sound. Yes.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Maseng, and thanks a lot to ladies and gentlemen for your questions. I'm just going to deal with one or two issues. The first one is that it was unfortunate that what was otherwise one of the best budgets presented in the country after a long time could not be discussed rationally because of the contentious issue of the VAT. If you look at that budget in its totality, I would still argue that that's one of the budgets that really had the potential to take our country to a right direction. But the VAT clouded the debate, and the argument that the ANC was
some are suggesting a major proponent of the VAT, is not necessarily factual. Immediately after the budget was presented by the minister, we conducted interviews. And the common response from the ANC was that we wanted to invite the nation into a constructive conversation about what is certainly a good budget for us. But we equally said in our comments, we fully understand that many people are not happy with the VAT increase. And so we have committed ourselves with other parties that a discussion must unfold between the minister, the portfolio committee, through interventions of various political parties to find a solution to this matter. Right from the onset, there was no ambiguity from the ANC. We put that position very firmly, both in Cape Town, in Parliament, and here in Luthuli House. Obviously, you will remember that the DA was never about VAT in reality. And I'll tell you why they chose the VAT when they go to court. If the DA had succeeded to negotiate its way successfully on the issues relating to, if you look at that budget, there's money that is allocated to ECDs, which is part of the implementation of the Bella Act, by the way. There is money allocated to the NHI, if you start that budget. The major issues for the DA were those two acts, the devolution of powers they wanted to be given to the Western Cape, the fact that they wanted the deputy minister who happened to be a member of the DA to be allocated more responsibilities. The list is endless. I can say many others. I'm quite certain that you are familiar with them. Had they achieved that, there was going to be no need for them to go to court, because in the first instance, whether you look at it in terms of their own policies, in terms of their own ideological orientation, I mean, we've been around, all of us here. We know what the DA stands for in terms of the policy orientation in this country. There is no way that they could have been the genuine representatives of the poor in the context of the VAT. But what they decided to do, tactically, was that now that we do not succeed in what we wanted to do, let's take the contentious issue and run with it. Because remember, they have had setbacks along the way since the GNU started. When these acts were signed, they felt that they are under the bus. So now is a budget. They have to find a way in which they are going to come back into the mainstream politics. So it was quite clear that the only thing that opportunistically can be exploited by them is the VAT, and they did that. But I do want to say that, so Parliament agrees that we're going to a portfolio committee, and all of us are committed to find a solution to this VAT, which really has attracted a negative, quite a serious negative.
Yeah, the people are making noise.
Oh,
Sorry.
So all of us had understood that we need a genuine conversation. That's why the ANC submitted its own input to the Minister of Finance. And I do want you to remember, because sometimes when the minister presented the budget, for instance, it was before the SAS commissioner presented his own numbers. And in terms of his own numbers, he said to the public, we have over-collected by 9 billion. And the first conversation that we had to do with the Minister of Finance from the ANC's point of view is that the VAT 0.5% for this year is meant to fund about 13 billion rand. And had you been aware that you are going to have an additional 9 billion rand, probably you are not going to consider the VAT. Now that you have this 9 billion rand, what do we do about that? Because essentially it means it's 4 billion rand that is a major issue if we talk about this year. Especially because all of us are in agreement about a variety of interventions, strengthening SARS, fighting corruption, dealing with wastages, all of these other interventions, we all agree as political parties and as well as in Parliament, that we've got to strengthen that front in order to improve the capacity of the state to generate more resources, but equally to complement the investment that is meant to take place in terms of the infrastructure. So it was quite clear that by the end of this consultation, within 30 days, because there's unanimity in Parliament, there will be a solution found. And I'm saying the easiest one was the fact that we've got an additional 9 billion that at the time when this discussion was taking place was not there. I think Zuko has dealt with the issue of how the lessons about how we must manage our processes. Now, Parliament conducted this process, a solution was found, the Minister and the National Treasurer agreed, and they went public to communicate. And when they went public to communicate, obviously those who are in court, they decided that this is not a victory for them, and they are going to have to find other means through which they are going to be part of those who celebrate the fact that the VAT has been reversed. I do want to end by saying, Comrade Masheng, honest South Africans will know that the genuine concern of the DA has not been the VAT. The VAT was a scapegoat, and unfortunately, because it's a contentious issue, they had to use it in order to reinsert themselves into a positive national conversation about the budget, about the ANC, walking away from the poor and all of that. In actual reality, we all know that there's no way that poor South Africans can depend on the policy target of the DA for them to be liberated. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Corey Futu. Over to you, SG, particularly around the Peter Mkaba dispute. Why is the minister not resigning in this case? And I think the last one would have been those two big issues, because I see that a number of them were handled, but the SG can pick up on other issues that you wish to comment on.
I think, thank you, Mdu and Godlimbi. These are worthwhile invitees to your podcast to elaborate. Yeah, Sunday World and the Sunday Times and City Press to elaborate and lunga, but I know you want me. So I'll still come, and then they'll come. The point I want to raise is lessons learned. We obviously have learned that we are in uncharted waters. That's a fact. And that when you are in a coalition, you've got to engage all the time. And that's what the ANC picks up from this. The other lesson for us is that, which is uncharted waters. It's correct that the budget would have been presented and the ANC would have passed the budget by now. And in this particular instance, it means we must engage with the budget process, with political parties and everybody, because the budget is an important political tool. Local government, provincial government, and national. And the worst of all, when you have reduced the majority, there will always be others who want a stake in the budget for their constituencies. For instance, if you interrogate the DA's perspective about them saying they represent the poor, you will realize there's no poor in their opposition of the VAT increase. It's their constituency, which is largely middle strata, okay? But nobody wants an increase of budget. Nobody, especially VAT, because it is regressive. So there are lessons to be learned in terms of that. You call it a debacle. We call it a point of difference among political parties, which was handled very well through our democratic processes, our legislature, and all of that, properly to the end. Calls for minister to resign. Ministers resign for committing major things. And I will ask a question: what did the Minister of Finance commit? Except the fact that the proposals that he brought to the fore were disputed, particularly around the VAT increase. And if you were to debate the budget in totality, you will realize that it's a good budget. And the minister was able to go backwards and actually do the right thing in terms of the processes that were actually followed. We are not going to have a situation, as much as it is the president's prerogative, to have a weekend special again. in our country. We are stabilizing the country, and at the same time, we will take cogent and informed decisions. It can't be when we are faced with a big challenge, like the budget debacle and impasse, the first resolution is to dismiss the minister. And those who are doing so and calling for the minister to go is political posturing. The same as the question of going to court was completely unnecessary because all matters could have been settled outside court. And the question we ask to the DA is that, how are you going to contend with the budget that you are in government that you did not support if the budget were to be implemented? Of course, it will call into question morally their continued participation in the GNU, because you can't be in the GNU to support a budget that you don't agree with. To us, it's not a make or break, it's a principled question that any political party that participates in the GNU will have to answer. The ANC is not in a hurry to dismiss people from the GNU, neither are we afraid about their presence. And we have never distorted nor seek to sugarcoat what GNU is. GNU is not a melting pot of political parties. It will continue to have these features of parties who are within it but disagree on policy issues, and that includes the DA. They'll continue to push for that. Even if you replace the DA, doesn't mean that the replacement is going to be aligned to the ANC. Those political parties are opposed to us. And then it doesn't mean that if you were to say go away and then the other party must come in, you can call them by names. They are not going to come there and change their identity and become African National Congress, except one party that claims that it is ANC. It is on the path of winning back the ANC through the back door, led by one old man in this country. But the rest are not sharing the same perspective with the ANC. You say that the minister caused a mess. It didn't cause a mess. We went, for the first time, I went with Mahlenge to Parliament, and we were told right on the doorstep, like all of you, that the budget has been postponed because we need more time to negotiate and to engage with the budget. And the minister was ready to present the budget, and so that had to be reversed. And by the way, other political parties, shame, they didn't provide anything in relation to the content of the budget. Those who are in opposition today and who went to court, except to say replace this one and then we can talk. Political parties that we negotiated and engaged with the budget. And then engaged with the budget did not come with conditions that we want leadership in the GNU. And I had some sweeping statement that we promised people positions. It's not correct. People argued their case in relation to the VAT increase. The backdoor austerity was addressed. SRD grant was addressed. Marriage, why don't we get out of it? We don't have a marriage with anyone. We don't have a marriage with the DA or any other political party. That is why anytime if they want to walk away, they can. The DA can walk away, any political party in the GNU can. And then we will then address the question of what happens when they've left. Do we lock the doors and then we say that they've gone and therefore let's see for ourselves? It doesn't work like that. So there's no marriage there. If there was a marriage wreck and all of that, it will mean that in terms of the statement of intent, we have agreed that we will not oppose each other. That's not correct. The DA, albeit incorrect, they're trying to do and play a role of being in government and being in opposition. They are finding it difficult to negotiate the two. That's what they are doing as a political party. And all the time the DA is opposed to something, it represents their colors, their ideology, who they are. That's why they are opposed to employment equity. Why are you surprised? We have said that during the election campaign, and it's for everybody and South Africans to see them for who they are. But for the constituency that they represent, that believes that they do the right thing, they will continue to support them. And the expression of that voice of the DA is through the media. That project that the DA, for instance, is doing the right thing and at the same time is representing the poor. You must go deeper and ask them, in this VAT increase, which poor are you representing and how? They wouldn't actually explain that to you. We are scathing against the DA. We are not scathing against the DA. We are presenting you with facts. And I wish to repeat this point. When the fiscal framework was tabled, you did not pay attention to this point. I wish to repeat it. The committee recommends that alternative revenue proposals and expenditure savings to balance the 28 billion shortfall, which must effectively suspend the proposed increases, be finalized and submitted by the committee to process within 30 days for consideration and adoption of the report by the House. And that is what the ANC supported in terms of the budget framework. So this notion that the courts were of assistance, which is an out-of-court settlement, again, which was formalized through an order by the judge, by the Cape High Court. You guys say in the media, for instance, and we can't argue with you about it, DA, some of you is your darling. You say that, no, they have won, and that, you give this narrative that they have not just won. Now, you relate it to the court order and say that government is being instructed, whereas this is an undertaking to an undertaking. When the minister announced that is withdrawing, and then it meant the court outcome itself was moot, and therefore there was no need to continue arguing in courts about this particular matter. So then there had to be an out-of-court settlement, which is what we have understood has actually happened. By that time, a decision had already been taken. And then it is argued that it happened because government was losing in court, which is incorrect. And if you look at this particular statement I've just read, which is not coined by the ANC, is all political parties and what was agreed to as we move forward to pass the budget framework. It is in black and white. The ANC was party to that. And that is it. So there is no question about scathing that the DA against the ANC. First and foremost, we are scathing in relation to employment equity because we are opposed to them. But it is who they are, and that's what they represent. And we explain our position as the ANC that we will oppose and will support government opposition to them, in particularly the Minister of Labor that they've taken to court. And that is what we're explaining. So it has got nothing to do to pick a person and box them for the sake of it. It is them who have gone to court and challenged the Minister of Labor to reverse employment equity on the eve of May Day, Workers' Day. That's what the DA has done. And we are clarifying the facts before us as we understand them as in relation to what has basically unfolded. And we are not saying that people shouldn't claim victories for fighting the increase of VAT. They did. And most importantly, maybe above the ANC, because the ANC, as a governing party, was equally faced with a dilemma that here is a minister who is in our government of national unity, treasurer representing a budget, where equally we are faced with a question, including our allies, including inside the ANC, are opposed to VAT increase. So what do we do about that? Okay? And then we arrived at this particular consensus. First time I was interviewed in Cape Town, when the budget was postponed, what did I say? Please pick up that clip. I said the ANC is opposed to VAT 2.2% increase. That's what I said. And at least it's me who speaks on behalf of the ANC until the next conference. That's what I said, right outside Parliament. And I said, we support what? The postponement of this matter so that we go backwards. When we went backwards, it was reduced to 0.5%. And the DA made political demands. Mdu explained part of them. Devolution, concessions, Durban and Cape Town. Who's that young man? Yeah, let me respect him, Deputy Minister. He must be given more powers. We said, and then let's discuss the budget spending review. We said these issues are on the agenda, we can resolve them beyond the budget. This cannot stop the passing of the budget. Those are the issues that were before us. We went and met with the EFF, and they even met next to the toilets with our leadership in Cape Town. Yeah, next to the toilets there with Gwede, the Deputy President, and Mdu. Mdu is here, right? They met with them. We asked them, which is correct, Mr. Malema is right, which is correct, that Mr. Malema in that meeting, we said to them, abstain if you are opposed. If you say that the DA is a problem. They said to the ANC, dismiss the DA and the Freedom Front Plus, we can consider that. That was the first phase. The second one, we went to meet in a meeting, face to face. They came with their expert on budget. Some guy they've employed there. It's not political leader. Is their expert on these matters. We don't have experts, we've got political leaders. Anyone can relate to the budget, including myself with my voodoo economics. I can engage with the budget. Now, we pride ourselves of that. I mean, Zugo was presenting our position here. He's a member of the NEC. Now, they brought their expert. Their expert explained elaborately the role of Treasury. And he traced it from which year? 18-something. And then up until now, and he explained it to his boss, Julius, in the meeting. Because I explained to them that we don't run Treasury. And then we've got no intention to run Treasury, okay? We've got no intention to run Treasury as the ANC. Those who want to do so have failed in the past, including Weekend Special. They failed. We've got no intention as the ANC to run Treasury. But where we are, you are correct that we did not have a situation where budget items went. Now, because we are many, there are people with interest, we engage. So it's a new uncharted terrain that we're going to engage with. So they came to us, and then they said to us at the end, summarized, it's not a gossip, and they've said it even in public. The EFF, they said that, no, we want remove the DA and so on and so. That is simplistic, you know. That can be done. In fact, the DA can even expel itself out of government of national unity. That is not of interest. The question is the budget. And then they did not engage with us about the budget in terms of what they want, because if you look at the budget and the issues we have raised even in our statement here today, you will realize what we are talking about. Zugo have explained SRD in terms of a mean test policy. It is not something that was thumb-sucked. But the ANC doesn't end there. It says we implement this with a view of transitioning to a basic income grant. I mean, I think by all standards in the world, we are the biggest country that is praised for a very comprehensive social security net. It doesn't start now. It started right from 1994 in terms of our approach to this. The fact that our economy is not performing and we are producing more and more unemployment and inequality, we are unable to deal with it. It's a challenge that we need to deal with in terms of the state of the South African economy. And then, so I'm saying the scathing part by the DA does not exist. We are not into this thing because the DA was scathing against us and that they are about to claim what is right and that they fought for the poor and all of that. No. This budget to us has been the budget that is pro-poor. The only thing you take out of that budget and you argue with us is VAT increase to 0.5%. Even that 0.5% was about to address the inequalities we are faced with. Go and look at the budget. And it was circulated, not leaked. At least you've got it in your archives. So we can all read about it. And lastly, City Press, victory. When was the ANC going to listen to the public outcry? The ANC listens to the people every day, and that is why this budget was reflective of the people's interest. Come and argue with us after you have read the budget that it is not in the people's interest. Here is a fact. We have been presenting austerity measures. These political parties, you are heaping praises. Ne? They criticize government, they say you don't fund military and defense force is weak, is underfunded. Where is the money going to come from? If you implement austerity measures, how is the defense force going to be equipped? Where is the money going to come from? They heap those things all the time. Immediately when we cut on the basic needs, teachers don't increase. Health workers and all of those things do happen. They are going to come back to this ANC government and say, look at what this government is doing to you. Is this austerity measures and all of that. That's what they are going to say. So we have come to accept that people who don't govern have got less responsibility and they can make all sorts of claims. We are not in a fashion parade with them. They can claim victories and everything else. We are not at war with them. They can. What we are presenting to you is the truth, which you will remember even tomorrow. It's not fake news. We are presenting to you the news, and we are telling you the truth that we are in uncharted waters, and this uncharted waters means that we must negotiate better with political parties around the issue of the budget, including and all of that, including ourselves as the African National Congress. So we are fine with everyone claiming victory over nothing. Because at the end of the day, the ANC lead this government, lead this country. The ANC, if it did not agree with the budget or whatever in terms of the budget, agree with the way forward, it would have been a different case altogether. So we are getting into the third phase. The 21st is what we support, and then by July or so, we will have a budget for the country. And that process also includes engaging other political parties, not just the DA, who majority of them were content with the budget. Who some of them came to raise the issue of 0.5%, but came to understand, including the distortion of the IFP. I'm not their spokesperson. It's a total distortion. IFP was opposed to VAT, but they came to appreciate it in relation to these issues I've mentioned. That how are you going to address social spending if you don't have sources of revenue? And that's what this statement in Parliament on the fiscal framework seek to address, to say that this thing is not permanent. It's temporary, but we must work towards ensuring that it is not permanent. And that's what has actually happened. We have engaged with all political parties, except one or two, in terms of these particular issues. And we are not interested to know why they did not come to the negotiations. We'll continue to talk with all parties, including the DA, We'll continue to talk with all political parties, including the EFF, and then we'll continue to talk to all political parties, if primarily those who have actually supported us. Last point you have raised, you have counted the numbers. Of course, we have explained that if the DA leaves, we'll be prepared to work with everybody. But one thing that we know is that you cannot, in every option you've got, GNU, Grand Coalition, and all of that constitute government without the ANC. And the ANC have adopted the model of the GNU for the interest of South Africa. We are not threatened by the GA shenanigans because they are an opposition, but we'll expose them in relation to our constituents. That this is the party that says it advocates for your interest. Where are the interests when yesterday they said they are against VAT, and then today they want the employment equity to be reversed? Study what is employment equity. If they succeed with that, they will have reversed the gains of our freedom. And that's why we'll oppose them. And that is what they seek to do in this arrangement that we have. And we'll oppose that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade SG. I, just out of, in the spirit of fairness and balance, I had made an undertaking that we will take people from this left hand. But we almost have run the full course of the, so I'm gonna take very quick questions, and then we will have the responses, and then the SG will close us out. I can't assist. Miss Bloom, from Bloomberg? Yes, Matsale, we'll start there and we'll go this way. Yes.
My name is Tembile Kwele from Bloomberg News. I just have a curiosity about the ANC's position on the second part of the application outside of VAT. Should the VAT Act, the powers that the finance minister has in the VAT Act, and actually a number of legislation, be upheld, or should that be a different structure? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll proceed in that particular order. Is there anybody there next to you here? Okay, if not, I'll come to yourself, my brother, and then Mlingani.
Thank you very much, Somdom. SG, affiliate of the COSATU says the Minister of Education must go. Will the ANC protect the minister?
The Minister of Education,
Yes.
for basic education.
Basic education.
Okay, thank you very much. Mlingani.
Thank you very much, SG. My name is Long. I'm from the Mail and Guardian. Secretary General, I'm a bit rusty. I was on leave, so maybe I'll ask things that are irrelevant and some comrades here maybe know about them. But I just want to hear from yourself, SG, to say the issue of the DP, the shooting thing, has it been presented to the ANC? Have you been given any updates? Because I heard you had some, I think it was in Northern Cape, saying you're going to be the spokesperson when it comes to that. And yesterday, the FF leader said if the motion against the president would come to remove him, they would in a way support it. Is there any fear in the ANC that the president might lose, or the ANC might lose the president if there was a motion in Parliament? And also, I saw John Block in Northern Cape. Is he back in the ANC? What is happening? Is still in a good standing in the organization? And lastly, you had promised me, SG, that you would talk to me about the issues of the statement of intent, to say, would it rather not be better if you remove yourselves from the statement of intent and go to an actual coalition agreement with the parties that are in the GNU, so that we do not have this back and forth like we're having now in the budget? Thank you very much, Secretary General.
Thank you very much. I suppose that is the last hand. With that, I will then turn to the team led by the SG. I'll ask Comrade Zuko to tackle as well as and to tackle some of the questions that are being asked, and then the ones that are specific to organizational work, the SG will handle those. And I think as you prepare to, we want to start, okay. And I think as part of responding, I will ask SG, with your permission, that let us restate our positions until they're understood, particularly particularly around the issue of the VAT. The SG has gone to town, but the same questions continually being raised, and I think we want to use this time to really explain the positions of the ANC. I don't want to take any more time than that.
No,
And then followed by
No,
committee.
thanks, Somlo. I'm just dealing with one question and one question only. The question, Stembile, about the VAT. You see, the point of contention from the Democratic Alliance is that in terms of the current act, the minister has the authority not only to decide on the VAT, but equally the date at which it must start. Our own view is that, I mean, this law has been with us for the past 3 decades. And it would have been better if the DA had raised the matter for a discussion. It may very well be that in a constructive and rational discussion, some sense can be made to all of us to identify in an event where there are major weaknesses with the current act. Just want to give you an example. The act allows the minister to decide on the VAT, but equally set the date. But in terms of what then follows, Parliament has the authority to decide whether that decision by the minister will remain valid or not. But where there is a weakness in terms of how that process is structured in law, is that at times, and in many respects, as it happened in 2018, by the time Parliament concludes its processes, the VAT would have started to be implemented. I think it's a matter that must go back to Parliament for a discussion. I don't know why the DA feels it can only be settled by the court of law. Because if there are deficiencies in terms of how Parliament is structured to respond to the ministers, because there's nothing wrong with Parliament deciding that in terms of how we're going to change our rules and regulations. If the minister says in April or in March, I'm putting a VAT in May, it should be possible for Parliament to deal with that issue before the time at which the VAT kicks in and take a position on it. And I don't think it's a matter that essentially requires a settlement by the court of law. It needs a discussion in Parliament, and look, I believe that there may be certain areas as we go into that conversation where parties will find each other without necessarily having to go to court. Thanks, Somlo.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Comrade Mahling. Just to probably emphasize the point that Comrade Mdu was making, the attitude of the ANC is that once the first budget was postponed, it essentially affected the timelines of Parliament. And the 1st of May proclamation could have been rational had things flowed from the 19th of February. And Parliament could have expressed its disagreement with the VAT and therefore forced the minister to kind of push it back. That is how the Act is currently designed. But with the postponement, it pushed everything backwards. And that meant Parliament would only sit to consider the Money Matters and Related Matters Act only after the fact. The idea that legislation can only be passed or amended through a court declaration is politically risky, not just for the ANC, for whoever gets to govern South Africa 100 years from now. And this is the point that the Democratic Alliance sometimes misses. If the DA had raised this thing in a Chief Whips Forum, for instance, and said, we think that this experience has taught us that there's something wrong with how the VAT Act anticipates the coming into effect of this thing, and let's find a way. All political parties would have probably agreed. But the DA has committed to this idea that the only way there could be progress, it must go to court. You are essentially overthrowing 2 arms of government and replacing them with 1. You don't think that the executive has the rational capacity to arrive at policy proposals on the balance of evidence. You don't think that the legislature has the capacity to observe things and arrive at a decision that, hang on, how we designed this thing can no longer be fit for purpose. Therefore, let's sort it out. What do? You go and abuse the court system and get a judge to intervene on executive policy issues. Because Parliament needs to design it such that it still protects the autonomy of the executive to be responsible for proposing tax adjustments. Once you push that down through court orders, and there's very thin space for policy maneuver, you will be in trouble. for instance, in discussion, which they've actually come to buy the logic. We've raised a similar issue about their proposal on a fiscal anchor, that you must go and have a law that prescribes how National Treasury and the cabinet must run the budget. It's an absurdity in terms because once political developments arise and the executive has to change course, you would have locked yourself in a legislative thing. Imagine if we had a fiscal anchor, for instance, around the COVID pandemic, which puts a particular ceiling on what you can do here, and there. You would have had COVID and no capacity on the part of government to roll out a stimulus package. Why? Because they would be acting illegally by so doing. So some of the things that they are proposing, even if you agree on the intention behind it, how they go about doing it, it undermines the very architecture of the political system. So that is a problem. I think the one point that I would make, Comrade Mahlengi, as you were saying, is that the ANC's arguments about this budget are not just about VAT. There's a lot that we've been saying, and we've raised it with all political parties. And there's no political party that has disagreed with the ANC's position on the expenditure side of the budget. Virtually everybody said the ANC's logic on this front is correct. The dispute was on the financing mechanism. The fact that South Africa needs to get into a post-austerity budget, a pro-growth budget, a ramp up on public infrastructure expenditure in order to crowd in private sector investment, those issues are not in dispute. And part of what we will be taking to political parties, as the SG was saying, before the 21st of May, is to forge a consensus around those issues. That we must not walk back into a budget that chokes out growth in the economy, whatever happens. That does not mean we'll undermine the other priority issues as containing debt service costs, for instance, by not running too huge a budget deficit and the effect that it has on interest rates in the economy and so on. We need to get to that rational position. Out of this crisis has been a very fruitful exercise. All political parties have now gotten to that point where they should have been from day one, to really go to the budget line by line and discuss the substance of each line in the budget proposal and get it to an agreement that is about things. Ezo John Block, ezezakho SG.
Yeah.
All the difficult ones.
Okay.
SG?
No, thank you very much. Iyacaca ubuse living mfundisi. Yeah, uyasibambisa. But guys, thank you very much for your questions. Difficult as they are, I think the opportunity to be in a space where we can clarify our positions is important. And I think that is why, because the ANC is distorted. Every day, social media, of course, social media has got many people there. And I've always argued that there is no debate you'll get through social media. The debate is of the discourse in South Africa have faced its death, and therefore what is important in terms of shaping the national debate, it is important that there's got to be platforms where we exchange and engage. And I appreciate the podcast because there you are allowed to go to town. And we are not a difficult party at the stage where we are not to accept where we are faced with difficulties and where we are forced to retreat. But we will not accept that we have been forced when we made concessions on matters. We will argue our point out of there, that position, that ANC has been forced to retreat. It's incorrect completely. We have actually engaged in a discourse on a difficult matter of the budget with a host of people and political parties. And then we have worked for the interest of South Africa. And that's what we continue to do. You know, the question about SADC is a reflection of the bigger part of what we are in the GNU. We've got no responsibility to reduce this country to rubbles. Others have got no responsibility to build. They just want to destroy. We can join the bandwagon, the minister must go. SADC have got absolute right to put their case, why they want the minister to go. There are people who are demanding the ANC, I mean, because the Minister of Finance to go. And we have explained from the side of the ANC, we don't see rationale to that. Now, if people come and demand ministers to go, we don't just join the bandwagon and all of that. We have raised with partners, even in the GNU, people who are there that can there be rationale, can there be maturity, can there be objectivity on how you address issues of governance? Because there's no minister of so and so. A minister is a minister in a government. And then ministers can be taken on politically about their weaknesses in relation to policy, and they must be able to stand for what they believe in. They believe in. But the ANC is a bigger brother in relation to this GNU. So we put the interest of South Africans first. And others have said in the past that we must surgically remove the ANC. I saw another man who got a bribe to write a book saying we must be removed. And then he speaks with moral authority as though he's coming from heaven, trying to mobilize everybody and say he's engaged in a fight. He's failed even to amass a small support even in the DA to become premier candidate in Gauteng. He's now looking for bigger things. He will hoodwink people who want to listen to him. And I don't know why you still invite this guy in the, because as an independent analyst, we're going to challenge him. He has thrown his colors to the mast. He's a politician. What analysis is he having? Is he going to dish out in the public broadcaster and everywhere else? You invite him, you like him, very well. Yes, you like him, Prince Mashele. And then you call him a political analyst. What analyst? He is in the terrain. He says he wants us removed. We will challenge any media house that continue to invite that pusillanimous politician that is an independent and demonstrate he's tired in terms of his thinking. We want to engage with him in the public platforms about what he says about the ANC and all of that. We're not afraid of him or his views. So we want to engage, but we will contest anyone who says that is an objective political analyst. He's not. He started with Herman Mashaba and the books and all of that. And then it went quiet. It disappeared. So he has come back. In South Africa, most you can be unpopular for a day. And then in the next 3 days, people forget who you are. Yeah, he's a very, very tired thinking politician running amok in this country, claiming that the ANC must be removed and that is his objective and ANC's enemy number one. We are ready to engage with him in the political terrain about everything and anything. The second part about, we are not going to rush into that, but SATU is a union. They've got a right to call for anyone in terms of the interest that they represent in that sector. MNG, no, the DP matter is closed. It's closed. We have defected the ANC to the police. You didn't hear me properly. I said, this thing in the ANC, when there is a problem, everybody speaks and they become detectives. Some of them, they argue it was true or not true. He was shot or he shot himself in the leg or whatever that is the case. We are not in that space. Paul Mashatile is the deputy president of the country and the deputy president of the ANC. We have surrendered him as the ANC to the country, and the country is protecting him. If there are security challenges around him, the country must respond. And the country has responded. It's handling that matter. And the country has responded that indeed there was this and that and that. We can't argue with experts. It's like when your car has gone into an accident and you lie that, no, you didn't hit the pavement. And then the insurance assessors come to you and tell you, actually, we suspect you were drunk because you were driving in a proper road and you hit the pavement, not this nonsense you are talking about. And then they dismiss your case. You must pay for your own car. You take your car to a backyard mechanic. Let me see, what is the problem? And then they mess it up further, okay? So we are not insurance assessors as the ANC. And I've explained to you that the deputy president have not briefed us about this matter, and then he have explained himself on the matter. We are satisfied with the explanation he has given. And we are happy also with the response the Minister of Police have given to the ANC. And we are very much confident that these two figures in government, the president and the deputy, are highly guarded by specialized people in the country, the best of the best. So we are concerned about such situations. When they happen, they are not reported to the party. But we'll be quicker to tell members of the ANC, we are in charge here. They must not rush and speak, all of them, about a matter they are not clued up about. Should we speak differently on it, the ANC will come back. But for where we are, the matter is closed, belongs to the state and the police. So if you want to ask any further about that matter and the security issues, speak to Masemula and speak to Nkunu, and then the deputy president can respond as and when he feels to do so. But we are satisfied that the matter is being handled at that particular level by people who are capable of handling matters of that nature. Of course, the sensationalism around it, that it was reported, whether or not it is true or false, it made it to look clumsy at the end of the day. And as the ANC, we're not happy. And that is why we talk to our members and say that leave it to Luthuli House to respond on such matters and not blow it out of proportion and mix it with politics and all of that. And so I think everyone have heard us and they understand that matters are properly handled at that level. With regard to motion of no confidence, yes, that can happen. It can happen. We'll deal with it when it happens. It's possible that anything of that sort can happen. But don't think that we're folding our arms and we're not alert to that. We're very much awake to it. And that's why I responded to the leader of the EFF and I said, you're saying motion of no confidence, but you didn't vote for the president. We defeated you with your 44 votes. And of course, the Zuma party was not there. Zuma was still challenging the elections. But even if he was present, you were going to be defeated. Cyril Ramaphosa got 283 votes in that parliament to be voted as president. It's a nature of our political fabric that somebody can raise a motion of no confidence, take it to parliament. Don't ask me in the environment of coalitions we live in whether that cannot happen or anybody cannot test that. They can. They can test it. It happens. It's the era of coalitions we are in, what we characterize as uncharted waters. Unfortunately, we have suffered a setback. We don't have a majority. But that not having majority does not make us a party that does not have teeth to defend itself and to deepen the agenda of the National Democratic Revolution and defend the gains of the NDR. So we will await that moment when it happens, if it were to happen. We have been promised here that John will become the president of the country. That is possible. Because you must not think that is empty rhetoric. They did it. Right from the inception when we lost power, the EFF voted with the DA. But the leader today is a great revolutionary, a friend of Traore, you know, from Burkina Faso. A great revolutionary, Julius Malema. He says that he doesn't want the DA and EFF and Freedom Front Plus, but when it's convenient for him, he votes with them. And when I engaged him and I said, he said I must go and talk that nonsense far away from him. From the onset, I said, but you know, revolution and this ideology, DA says, go and talk that nonsense far away from me. We will vote with the DA. In doing what? To punish the ANC. And you don't ask a question. What is the beef with the ANC? That is God. We don't have a beef with the EFF. We are not at war with them. We understand them perfectly as an opposition. EFF is not an enemy. Is an opponent of the ANC, right? Our strategy and tactics is very clear in defining what is the enemy. It says our opponents in politics and in parliamentary environment must not be misconstrued to be enemies of the revolution, right? The strategy and tactics goes further to define what is the enemy. We differed when we said the enemy, it is white monopoly capital. And then we said it cannot be that the ANC have such definition in its vocabulary or in its strategy and tactics. We said capital, it is not the enemy of the ANC. That is why we said it is unity and struggle of the opposites. It's there in the strategy and tactics. So we don't just verbose words. We are guided by the strategy and tactics. Other political parties just verbose things as and when they feel like. But we are guided by the strategy and tactics that tells us how do we define our opponents. They are opponents. They are coming our way. They are participating in a democracy. But the enemy finds its expression in different forms today. It's very difficult. It's not like apartheid where the enemy was clear. It's on the other side. Today, you could be asking me a question and you are deep in the belly of the enemy and espousing ideas of the enemy, embedded with the ideas of the enemy to destroy the African National Congress. We are alive to that. And we are forever vigilant about that. That's why we are not threatened by opponents. Opponents, we defeat them politically. And that is why it is our work and how we govern and our believability, Mahlengi, that is going to win us back votes, back into power. People want to believe. That's why when we negotiated with parties, they said to us, hey, you can't be trusted. You are duped by the ANC. Can you repeat that today? You said that about Mashaba, that those ANC people are crooks. They've crooked you and all of that. We went till the final end. Today you quiet about it, but it's South Africa. You said the ANC is duping you to vote for the what is this? For the framework, those are crooks. Mdu is a crook. Look at him. Does he look like a crook? I mean, and this one, they don't look like crooks. And then a liberation movement like us today cannot be believed. When we get into discussions with political parties, we engage with them with honesty. And when we agreed in the negotiations that no, we don't want VAT increase, they didn't only buy our story, we went to include it in the framework that I've explained. And then we went ahead. And then they said, no, you are duped. Because for them, it was politically. And they insulted Herman Mashaba. Mashaba doesn't agree with us in many ways. I mean, we just had a joint press conference the following day, he's telling us about Palapala. So now you come and accuse us about the DA and say that, no, the DA, hey, why this marriage? We're not in a marriage. You can bring anybody. Do you think Mashaba is going to stop that Palapala thing if he comes into the executive? He's not. Do you think Malema will stop his motion of no confidence if we bring him into the GNU? He's not. He could actually be the West. He could be the one who can fast track our demise, actually. It's too dangerous because so it's not straight. So when we deal with the DA, we deal with clear thing. Sidila nento esibonayo imigulukudu esijongileyo. Siyayibona ukuthi lento ifuna uyakuphi. Don't come to us. You know, Zuma used to say, when you come with me, Yandos, I come with me, Yandos. You know, that's what he used to say in Parliament. And dark and diving questions in Parliament, not answering them. I come with me, Yandos. All of that. But that was a very sophisticated way of ducking questions as a president, running away from answering questions. And then he says, Millionaires? I come with millionaires. I mean, then you ask about John Block. John Block is out. He was invited. Give the man peace, man. He served a lot and he's still facing cases. Fact that he served as a chairperson of the ANC, everybody was invited there. And obviously, you know that his membership is not in good standing because of the challenges that he's basically facing. The ANC constitution applies to him. So he was not invited for any other thing other than to celebrate history of everyone who led the ANC. One day, maybe Zuma will be invited. You'll be shocked to the ANC, and you'll still ask that question. So John was invited by the province, and that was just that moment. We are going to have a GNU meeting with all parties in the GNU to reset the pattern. How should we work? And how do we want to arrange these things, these shenanigans that have been happening? Ministers doing as they wish in the GNU, others ducking out of the country, going to the United States and all of that. Ministers doing what they do. South Africans are looking at the executive. They don't look at political parties. Fine and good, you've got your members who are in the executive. And let me explain to you. This road is going to be very tough going forward. And I'm concluding now. I'm not going to answer the question of Peter Mkaba. You can ask it at a later stage. We have conferences that are running there. I've just spoken to Thabang Makwetla as the leader of the deployees to intervene in that situation. Should he fail, it means we will come ourselves. But we are not going to do that. But we'll never allow the ANC to be run like before, where people do as they wish. They must intervene as the leadership, sort out whatever challenges that are there on the ground as the deployees and resolve them. That's what is important for us. GNU, we're going to reset the pattern, and then we're going to have a meeting of the GNU, and then we're going to discuss how we want to work going forward. We've got a clearinghouse. We're sitting here, a minister is taken to court on a policy matter by a partner in the GNU, okay? There are many other things that we need to clarify in terms of this GNU. Have we finished the year as the GNU? No, we have not. Yeah, it means we are saying, so that is why it feels like we've finished many years. We have not finished a year. So we need to look at that. Clearinghouse, is it working? How do we deal with issues? It looks like when you are here, you need to condition your mind that all the time you must negotiate. I've spent almost a month now negotiating a budget as the SG of the ANC, and the branches are waiting for me there. But this is the life we're going to live. Even my hair have changed and so on. So this is the life we're going to live. And we need to understand. So we're resetting the button about how the GNU parties, not government, parties operate. And it is important that we need to engage all the time on matters difficult and so on. These issues that have been flagged will still be discussed in the context of the GNU and all of that. And as I conclude, and maybe if we were operating in a different manner, we would have reached a consensus on the budget before it was presented as the ANC-led government of national unity. So we need to relook into those and address a whole lot of issues going forward so that we avoid clashing unnecessarily and do the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, colleagues, and thank you, SG, and thank you to Comrade Zuko and Comrade Mdu, and to yourselves, members of the media, for spending this afternoon with us. We are adjourned, but I think, SG, you want to say Happy Workers' Day to members of the media?
Yeah, no, we wish to wish all the workers a Happy Workers' Day tomorrow. And we promise them as the ANC that we'll continue to be loyal to the workers' interests and demands in our country, And in the context of NEDLEC and social compact, work to resolve issues. And long live the workers of our country, and injury to one is an injury to all. And down with the DA, down.